The Mark one is so dour.
You're not dour. Just
No,
your
the emoji.
just
The
your
emoji.
emoji.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're very dour. So I think we're live.
All right. Well,
See?
whether or not my
There we
emoji
are.
is dour,
The Mark one is so
I think
dour.
we're definitely live here. You can decide if you've seen the Steven and Mark emojis. I think my emoji is just a little dour, and Steven's emoji is like super jolly and laughing all the time.
Well, when I'm with people, I'm like that. It's I'm just it's you know what happens? I'm always busy, and there's this thing called, I forget what it's called, but like, because I actually started as a coder for a long time, that you get into a groove, and if you get out of that groove, it can take hours, days to get back into it. Writers have it too. Like, once you're in this groove and you're like in the mindset, you can get more done while you're doing that than any other time. And then, like, I was actually in the middle of coding. I was actually doing coding for Indigo Isles for Foundry. Actually, I've been doing nothing but Foundry coding these last few days. Getting very good at it very, very quickly. And
you're doing all sorts of things that nobody else has ever done, like to the point that, like, didn't we wind up getting one of like the main Foundry people to come and talk to us?
Yeah. We have a private message board. I don't know if you.
And normally it was just our Ians who are working with us, but I thought
Foundry's
I saw
actually now helping us.
Yeah.
Because we're doing stuff that no one's done.
It's the Year of Monsters, right? Like the idea of having a module that just sort of auto continues throughout the time.
It's a module that will auto update itself 12 times a year, maybe 13 because there's the compendium. So 13 times. And no one's really done it like this. I mean, they've done, like, we update our modules all the time, but this is something where we're literally making a module, and then every month it's going to update, and we're trying to figure out the best way to do this from a player point of view, because there's a lot of ways to do this and no one's really thought this through. So
yeah, I feel like we're like certainly the biggest Kickstarter that I've seen that has such a major Foundry component that is just like, no, you have to get the Foundry for Year of Monsters, and we're really combining together, so it makes sense that there are things that nobody's done before. Oh, look, Ninja Slayer in chat says they're remaking the first Witcher game, so I'll be able to play the Witcher series without suffering through the first game. That's really solid. I guess I'll wait for that. I always sometimes think maybe I can suffer through the rest of the first game.
Really, I like the first game a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was a single player MMO when it first came out, way back when. Yahtzee Croshaw said the same thing when he reviewed it.
I got pretty bored by the first game.
Oh, it's got rough spots, but you know what, it was, the world building was so interesting.
The world building was good, but
it was so
only
unique.
Occasional, and then I just had to do like the tedious game.
No, I didn't finish it.
Oh yeah, neither did I. I made it through the first chapter where like the dogs were like attacking or something like that, but then I made it into like the wider open area, and I was like, there's a lot that I have to take in here, and I'm not interested in really any of it. And every time I go somewhere, there's like boring fights and
well, I am looking. So those of you new or watching or listening to this, we usually talk about random stuff for like 10-15 minutes, and then we talk about the topic.
So the dragons,
because we let people come in, and then also if you have questions, because we're geeks and normal people, and like I just finished God of War.
Nice.
So Ragnarok. It's interesting. I mean, I loved it. And it's a strange game because the first one is game and then story is second. This story is first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And then they had to fit a game around it, and I can feel it. Like, I can really feel it. Like, I can't believe it. I say this is like too much story. It's like, but it is spectacular. And it's just it's fantastic. But holy moly, is there a lot of story?
But your first response is just it's Interesting. That's not as positive as I would have expected, given that you consider the first one of the best games of all time.
I still consider this one. I liked it more than Elden Ring because as much as I loved Elden Ring, there's like no story. I know there's a story, but man, you got to dig.
Yeah, I know
incredibly deep to find that story.
You're talking about. Like, I actually really liked the challenging Dark Souls
I love the gameplay.
Difficulty of stuff.
No, the gameplay's great.
But people are always talking about, there's such story richness in Dark Souls that it's like
so abstract.
There is theoretically, if you want to like dive through wikis or like read a one-line gloss on an item and then use that to extrapolate a lot of other things. But in terms of the storytelling, for me, like those Dark Souls styles, I really don't get a lot of the story from them.
Brings me
Hollow Knight, strangely, of all the like Souls likes, I felt that I could really feel the story, even though I don't think they did anything that different than Dark Souls in terms of it was just in the ambiance and you're supposed to pick it up. But for some reason, I picked it up much more than I did in Dark Souls.
I would say, the story. And that actually brings us back to The Witcher, because The Witcher 1, the world is amazing, and Witcher 2 was a little too rough. I liked the first half. But you know what comes out, I think tomorrow.
What comes out today?
The Witcher 3 update for next gen consoles, and they smoothed out some of the rough parts. It's kind of like what they did with Persona 5. So they added new functionality. Oh, my phone's going off. They added
an automatic update for the one on Steam.
Yeah, it's automatic. It's free.
I own The Witcher 3 on Steam.
Oh, it's totally free. Yep.
I just have never played it because I can't get through The Witcher 1.
Oh, it doesn't matter. The Witcher 1, you know what? Witcher 3 is self-contained.
You say that, but I don't play games that are in the series or have such a rich world and storyline without having done the ones that were before that.
I would not, because that's a bad rule, I'll tell you right now, because a lot of these games don't follow their own stories. Like The Witcher 3, first of all, they explain everything in the game. Which, I mean, this is one of the highest graded games of all time, period. And it works so well because it is self-contained, and it explains how the Witchers exist. It explains who everyone is. It explains Ciri. It actually is tied more into the Netflix series than anything else. The first game's not that great. In fact, if anything, I'd say the second game has a much better story. And The Witcher 3 is a little bit more tied into
the second game.
The second game's story is pretty good. The second game's story is pretty good. The third game, though, it's not even close. I mean, it's like that is like I've probably played it. I haven't fully completed it. I've come very close. I probably played the thing with The Witcher 3. They did something I've never seen before. You get to one of the main cities, and I think I spent like 20 hours just in the city, and I still didn't see everything. It's like a lot of these cities you get to, they're cities, but they only really make like 2 or 3 points of interest. This city is a real city. It's the size of a city. It has as many points of interest as a city. You can get lost in it. I'm like, most games aren't as big as this city. And I was like, it's actually stunning how massive that game is. Anyhow, I'm very excited. That comes out like any day now. I guess
like I don't have agoraphobia in real life, so it's not the right word, and it may be like trivializing actual agoraphobia, which I don't want to do as an acrophobic, but I get a sort of agoraphobic sense in games where like the city is too big for me to go through and find the things, because I like to I like to get my head around everything that can be done before I progress the main plot.
That was out now. Yeah, I thought it was out on the 14th. I thought it was today. So anyhow,
it's already out.
Yeah.
Steven, you could have it. You could be playing it right now.
My Steam Deck. Well, what I did is, I told you I have my new rule where I don't buy any more games.
Oh, right. But don't you get it automatically? Because
I get it automatically.
Because it's an update to a game you already have.
Yep. So I'm going through my old list, and I finished up, I mean, God of War was an exception. As I said, I'm going to say I'm going to say one new game every quarter. So like maybe every 3 months, because I do want to buy the new Fire Emblem, because I've been playing that game since since like the 90s. Like,
Yeah.
like I've been playing it before anyone even heard of that game. So that I'm definitely gonna get.
Were you playing Shadow Dragon? Was that the first one that came out in the US?
Well, I believe it or not, I used to play. It's a style of
Japanese
game.
translations.
No, it was something one like Death and Darkness. Well, there's like Military Madness, War Song. Those are very similar, where you have one unit on one side, one unit on another side, and they fight each other. Military Madness does that. I mean, these are really old games. These are games from the 90s. Sorry, 80s.
Sure.
And they kind of perfected it. And then you have Advance Wars. But I liked the Fire Emblem because I like one unit versus an army versus an army. I don't find it as fun. So
yeah, myself. I've been playing Fire Emblem pretty much as long as they've been out in the US. In fact, I think like we wound up getting something like when we were in Japan in Akihabara, getting like a random Fire Emblem, although it's not very easy to play in Japanese.
Yeah. So I've been playing that on and off from the beginning, and then obviously the new one kind of broke through. Like that one, like obviously broke through big time, and now the next one. So I'm very excited because I love that game.
Oh right, Ninja Slayer's right. Blazing Blade was the first one that came up for the US. That was
I don't remember. That
was the one that had Ellie Wood and Roy in it.
Yeah. To me, they're just like names. I'm like, they all blend together.
The first chapter was with Lindis, and you are just like the tactician who comes in.
Yeah, actually, I do remember that.
Yeah, right.
So now I am playing. What am I playing? I gotta look it up. Hold on. Without blowing up my computer here. Hold on. Tales of Arise. Which came out last year. Funny is, I played it and I got pretty far in it, but then I picked it up and I tried to play it from where I was, and I was like, like 15 hours in. I'm like, and it literally, here's the funny part. I started it on December 8th, and then I looked at my last save. My last save was December 8th, 2021. So I was like, well, I'm nothing but consistent. It was exactly 1 year later. And so then I started.
Arise like simple enough that you can pick it up a large distance in? Because
you know what? It's a role playing.
Games sometimes get like a million subsystems. Like Linda and I.
There's a lot of systems in this. I just started it over.
And then we stopped for a while. And I've gotten really worried that if we tried to start Zestiria again, that we would just get confused, because I know where there was that grid of items that had like these complicated synergies that you had to do with different like spirits or something into the items. And I remember how much effort we had to do to actually understand what that was. And I'm thinking if we picked it up now, we just would not know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we were on a very high difficulty level.
Which game is this?
That was Tales of Zestiria. It's a much earlier Tales.
Well, right. This is a Tales game, and it is a very complex combat system. And I came back in, I'm like, I don't remember anything. Actually, I'm way enjoying it more because I don't remember any of the story. And I'm like, at first I was like kind of slogging through it, but now it's a lot more fun. But I'm going on vacation.
The main thing I remember about Tales of Zestiria that's very important is, like 4th edition D&D, diagonals just let you move at full speed along the diagonal, so you go square root of 2 times faster if you always travel on a diagonal, allowing you to outrun all the monsters on the map that normally would be able to chase you down.
So, and then I'm bringing my Steam Deck, and then I bought, look at this.
Oh, let's see it.
This is a battery.
Wow,
my Steam Deck, I already have my Steam.
I've had that lasts a long time.
No, it's designed, because I'm going to be on the airplane and stuff. I tried it last night. It actually only worked on the Steam Deck for 3.5 hours. But
that's not actually very long.
No, it's not. Well, the Steam Deck,
battery guzzler.
Yeah, I've actually, so on my Steam Deck, I have managed to, it's very easy to use. I just play on my Steam Deck. Let's see. I managed to play quite a bit, and then we'll get to what's going on here. I managed to finish Yakuza Like a Dragon from beginning to end.
Dragon, see, that's sort of getting.
There you go, Like a Dragon. There we go. We got into
Jeremy
it.
McCutcheon asked a question that was even more on topic, which is, have you looked at the Dragon expansion pack for WoW?
No, I'm not into WoW anymore. My friend is Chris Beamer. He's still a WoW addict. You have to remember, I've been playing.
What do your like friends who like created all the most like important stuff in WoW feel about the fact that you're no longer into WoW?
Oh, he doesn't care. He doesn't even play video games anymore.
Oh, fair enough.
He doesn't do. Nah, we talk. I mean, he's kind of out of it, and things have changed so much. I mean, you have to remember, I've been playing WoW. Like it came out in 2004. I was playing WoW since 2001. So I was playing it 3 years before it was public because I was friends and family.
If your WoW character that you first created, got like isekai'd out of WoW into Earth, they would be right now as like an infant. They would be right now in college and be able to drink alcohol legally.
Not only that, here's the crazy.
How old they would be.
I was in it so long ago. I was in World of Warcraft. This is pre-Friends and Family Alpha. Like, this is like pre-Alpha. That I went around the world, and then where like Stormwind was going to be was literally just the vendors lined up, and that's it. Because they didn't have it there. It was just an empty space. Like, wherever the cities were, they just had vendors lined up so you can play it and level up. It was so... I wish I took pictures. It was so empty, the world. There was literally nothing in it, because there literally was nothing in it back then. And then and John built Stormwind. So... he built Booty Bay. He built that from scratch, and then he rebuilt Stormwind when they did the Dragonflight expansion, because none of the
make sure that it didn't break. When you were going
none of the cities were closed off past like the ground level, so they had to redo it. It was a nightmare. It took them like a year to like redo it. So had to rebuild from scratch. Can you imagine that being your job? John has great stories, by the way. So
that is a very interesting year of having a job. Although I guess when you're working at a company like that, you never do exactly what you expected. Like my friend Chris, who was working at Microsoft, said that the MVP who received an award from like his team coded over the course of a year like negative 83 lines of code. Because they counted how many you added and subtracted, and it reduced the load time by so much that the fact that he had deleted way more than 83. Obviously, he also wrote some as well, and you never know. And maybe you'll spend a year rebuilding a giant castle city. I could see that.
So, once again, if people have questions, feel free to ask us questions. Super chats are answered right away. You can subscribe, and any subscribers will also get their questions answered right away, always. And we're going to be talking about dragons. And I was thinking about the... So back to the original question. No, I have not played the Dragon WoW expansion. I probably won't. I've been in and out of WoW so many times. And...
you have an on-again, off-again relationship with WoW?
Well, it also has to do how many friends are in it. And at this point, it went from all my friends to one. So, and I play, he's in our actual play. I play other games with him. I talk to him all the time. He's in my fantasy football leagues. And, like I see him constantly. So it's not like I'm not seeing him if I'm missing out on a game. So, 20 years ago, this is all we did. Now we got a million other things to do. So why are dragons so popular? And I was like thinking about this because, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Here's the
thing.
Lay it on me. Here's the thing. I've been playing role-playing games for 40 years. I can count the number of times, probably on one hand, that I have had encounters as a PC with the dragon or as a GM. You never fight them, ever. It's extreme.
Wow,
at least
really
I don't.
Only had 5 or fewer encounters with the dragon.
Yeah, it's not very common.
I have not been playing for 40 years because anyone who I told that to would know I was lying, since I'm not even 40.
That's true.
I have had numbers of encounters with dragons that I haven't counted them up, but I'm guessing that it's got to be at least 10 times as many as you.
I never encounter them. It just doesn't happen. Strangely, one of the best encounters I ever had, which was probably the most recent one, which was something like 4 years ago, was at PaizoCon, where I was playing a first level Pathfinder society adventure, and there was a dragon in it. So the dragon was first level. So we fought a first level dragon with like 5 hit points, and it was fun. But then I felt bad. I was like, oh, it's a little baby dragon. Like, I felt really bad.
Oh no. I guess you've never played like any of those beginner boxes that have dragons in it. Even like the early box. Is it like the brown box where after you beat Zenzer 10's dungeon, that there's a second level that has a white dragon in it?
There were, you know what? I don't remember. Unfortunately, I mean, like I played a lot of D&D, but back then we used to. It was different back then. We played D&D. We played Traveler a lot. We played lots of games. Like back then it wasn't like D&D was big, but so was Top Secret, and so was Boot Hill, and so was Toon, so was GURPS. Like there was just a Bushido. Remember that one? I mean, there was a lot of games. There's a lot of games back then. And Traveler was really popular. Like that was a lot of fun.
So is your claim that since some of those decades that you were playing a lot of games, not all of which were Dungeons and Dragons or even fantasy, that's part of why you had fewer dragon encounters?
You didn't start seeing dragons until like level 12, 15 at least. You didn't start seeing them until you got the higher levels. And we never really got to those higher levels. I think that was a big part of it. I mean, I think it's different now, and that you will see dragons, but dragons are so hard to GM because they do so much. You want to make them memorable. They're very, I think they're one of these, like, they're too good, if that makes sense. Like they're almost better having them as a vague threat than something you actually face in a game.
I mean, I know what you mean about them being too good. Like you'll see that, like in all of Pathfinder First Edition, which ended in Age of Ashes for Second Edition, but they were just like kind of tiptoeing around using dragons because they were just too good, or the idea is like maybe it's overdone, but it's not really overdone. If you look, just not a lot of people use them except for occasionally when they're like, this whole plot is going to be about them.
Right.
They're really, really strong. It's like,
but that's
it's like throwing in your spiciest or most flavorful food.
Yep.
And part of it is that just like it's something that's part of the collective unconscious across almost all humanity. And Trey talked about that in chat. Like, it's not just RPGs. Dragons show up in folklore everywhere. And across the world, in cultures that you wouldn't think necessarily actually got that from cultural diffusion, right? Like you can see them back in Sumeria and Babylonian mythology. There's like Tiamat in Hebrew mythology. You've got like Leviathan is kind of a dragon whale type creature that shows up. You've got like the giant snake dragon, like Apap or Apophis in Egypt, ancient Egypt. You've got in Hinduism, there's a Vritra, who's the giant drought dragon that Indra has to fight up against. And obviously Greek mythology has a bunch of different dragons, and they have Dracon or Draco, like that original etymology for the word we currently use, with like multiple dragons, both named Ladon in Greek mythology, who guarded like the apples of the Hesperides, or maybe it was the golden fleece that Jason received. And Norse mythology has the world serpent and the dragon Nidhogg, who's like eating the roots of the tree of life, and Fafnir, the dragon who Siegfried defeats. There's just dragons all over the place, and that's mostly Western and like Mesopotamian. I guess I did South Asian, but then you also have a whole bunch of dragons in East Asian mythology, like the Longs or Lungs who are they look like the ones that we have in Pathfinder are like called the Imperial dragons, that you know, that traditional body shape where they don't have the claws and they don't necessarily have the wings, and you see those like across all sorts of different cultures in that area. There's like Vietnamese versions of those and Korean versions of those, and it's part of like those, you know, the 4 directional deities, like there's the turtle of the north and the western white tiger, and there's the blue dragon that's part of that. So dragons are just everywhere when it comes to world mythology, and so I think that has just placed them, and that may be a chicken and egg thing, but into the collective unconscious. If you read any myths, if you read any stories, you're going to see dragons, and you're going to see them standing for a variety of things. If it's from Christianity period, they sort of took on a meaning as like symbolic of sin and like the greed of dragons, or the overbearing pride of dragons. And you see some of that in the depiction of the evil dragons in D&D. But in a lot of these other mythologies, the dragons weren't necessarily evil. They were just, they were powerful. They were symbols of power and a variety of different personality traits. And so that feeling of power that dragons exude from their core, I think that's what makes them so attractive as monsters, as like the big bad, or as allies, or playing a dragon, that being like the thing. Playing a dragon, just playing a giant, that's fun. Playing a demon, that's fun too. But playing a dragon just means something different, and it's just part of that symbolism.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, I'm looking this up, and it's like most dragons in like Greek mythology and others were actually serpents. Like that's the thing. It's they're really like, that seems to be very, very common. Is they're serpents, and then they usually, especially like Asian dragons, like Japanese dragons and stuff, and they look like serpents with arms and legs, and then slowly they get, you know, the dragon type of face. But then, you know, they sort of morph to get the wings. But that's the one thing consistent, is that dragons are really more serpent-like than dragon-like, and then I think only recently, in the last couple hundred years, they sort of morphed into what they are now.
And the Greek ones often had more heads, not just the Hydra, which is more famous and became sort of the D&D monster that had the more heads, but many depictions of Ladon, who's described as a dragon, had multiple heads. So that's like that being just like a snake kind of thing with extra features. Those all have their own particular way of being done, and they were usually more serpentine. Like you said, they didn't necessarily have wings. They were like the orms that, like Lin orms in Pathfinder, that were just basically worms. They were like long serpents or worms.
Worms.
You see some of the more modern depictions of dragons come up in a few different cultures, but one of the places it did was in like medieval Christian depiction. And that's because of the fact that they were sort of melding in some aspects of like the devil onto the dragons. And so like those bat-like wings and certain other features and like horns and other things became a little more popular during that time that they were equated with sin. And but that's not the only place where they had those kind of features either. There's just a really, really interesting depictions of dragons, like, and of course there were some that don't meet either of those descriptions, like the whale dragon Leviathan from the Bible that has enough meat to feed people for like a huge amount of time after it's killed, and also swallows the prophet Jonah.
So you have dragons, and obviously it's like Dungeons and Dragons, and it's so funny because since then everyone has made like tunnels and trolls and like any alliteration to fantasy things. None of them ever worked. Castles and Crusades, you know, it's like everyone tried, but man, they just, you know, they got it right the first time, and sometimes
Stay
you just
tuned for our release of Glickers and Ghouls.
Well, he just couldn't do. And the funny thing, because like dungeons, I've been in trillions of dungeons. I've been in a billion, not me, but, you know, characters. I mean, I can't even count. It's endless. And at dungeons in video games, too, which is only weird because dungeons like they show in game, that totally doesn't exist. It's like not like that. And then you have dragons, which obviously don't exist. But the thing with dragons is just that because they're such an apex predator, and then when you design them, this is how it's. I mean, at least when we design them, it's like the way you design things in video games or World of Warcraft or these other games is what they basically have is the number of abilities. So I'm kind of being really general here, but for example, maybe your average monster will have 3 types of attacks and that's it. And then you'll have like your elite and they'll have more hit points, better saves, but they'll have 5 attacks. And they'll be much stronger. And then you'll have your legendary, and they'll be even stronger. This is how the item system works in Diablo, and they'll have even more attacks and more special abilities. But then you get dragons. So dragons, they got the most. They always have the most abilities. They have incredible. They just have everything. They are very hard to play. They have a ton of abilities. They always have spells. They always have special abilities. They usually have auras, fear effects, changing shape, mind control. Like they have so many things at their disposal that I almost feel like if you're going to go up against a dragon, it's almost it's better to not go up against them, to go up against them, because either two things are going to happen. You're either going to lose and die, or you're going to win and be disappointed. like you can't win. You can't. It's either oh, that dragon wasn't that hard, or that dragon killed us all. Like now what? So
yeah. So Scott S mentions in comparative mythology, dragons and serpents often fight against sky gods in a battle of chaos versus order, which is a power fantasy. And that is connected to one of the anthropological theories of dragons as symbolizing that people sometimes think different mythology symbolizes different natural scientific things. And some people think that dragons symbolize like rainfall and droughts, just because of multiple different draconic beings that represent those. There's others who, if I recall correctly, claim that the reason you get these terrifying dragons across so many different cultures who never met each other is because of the fact that like smaller monkeys would have been like eaten by giant snakes. And so there may be they claim, obviously without very much evidence other than just theorizing, that there's a deep evolutionary fear of the giant snakes, in the same way that some people say the nails on the chalkboard reaction comes from screeching of a giant bird that might come down and eat you.
Yeah, actually, so Ollie Wright says dragons can fly around at long range and bombard the party. Not wise to engage a dragon outdoors. In fact, one of the few times I did fight a dragon, probably the last time, is in Seth's campaign, 15 years ago. And it was me, Bob, and Chris, and we saw something. Now, this was before turns and movement, so, it was first edition D&D, so I have arguments of this, because the dragon was way up in the sky.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that you were the only one who survived.
And I'm right, and the dragon in one round went from half a mile away down to the ground. I'm like, come on, man. You didn't give us any time to get away. They fought him. I left. They died. Game over. I was like, that's the end of the campaign. And he was angry because he's like, well, why'd you fight it? You're not supposed to fight it. They're like, well, why'd you put it there? We thought we would fight it. Why would you have it there? He's like, because of the dragon. It's this thing will destroy you. And it did. But that's my experience. Maybe I've just had very bad experiences with dragons. And I can see that. Now, ironically, here's the weird part. The Jewel the Indigo Isle adventure path has plenty of dragons in it. Not plenty, but there's dragons. And you won't feel bad about killing these dragons, let me tell you. I can't spoil it. There's one dragon which strangely we added at the very last second, because their boss encounter, I didn't like the boss encounter. at all. It was like supposed to be the big bad boss, and I did not like it. I haven't had art for it, and I thought it was just lame. So Mark and I talked, and we figured out, hey, let's make this a dragon, and then we did, and we made it.
I'm always in favor of more dragons, and we had a dragon-esque, big, awesome monstrosity from the Battles of Zestiria that was in the right level range. So I was like, this is what we want for this. And we especially did. Given the religious connotations of the dungeon, it fit too. So
and then on top of that, and this is where the dragon gets crazy, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but let's just say the dragon you can't get away from it. I'm gonna leave it at that. like you're like, we'll just go in the other room. It doesn't work. Like you're fighting this thing. You're fighting this thing one way or another. It's not too hard. I mean, it's definitely. This is an example of. There's two ways to make a dragon fight memorable. You can either make it really, really hard and have a million special abilities, or, and I prefer this way, you can make it average or just a little harder, but give it special abilities that no one's seen before or incredibly memorable. The special abilities this thing has are, A, I don't think I've ever seen before, seriously, and B, incredibly memorable. And that is enough. Like, you don't need to make... I
only saw them before in Battles of Zestiria.
Yeah. But my point is like what it can do. And then the other thing is, because, and I find this has really been helping us, because you can play a dragon and dragons are NPCs, which has been done before, but not to this extent. You hang out with a lot of dragons in this game. You befriend them quite a bit, and you are, hanging out. And I think that's even more fun. Rather than killing the dragon, have the dragon your ally and hanging out with you and doing cool stuff, because these things are so strong. It's like, damn, man, I want this guy on my side. I don't want to be fighting this thing. I want him to help me. And I think that's a lot more fun than killing it. I think so. In our game, you get both. You get to both kill a dragon here and there, and you get to hang out with them as buddies and friends. Although someone did point out that Rumplank has 12,000 people, and I think like 1 or 2% of the population is dragons. So that means like there's 200 plus dragons hanging out at Rumplank.
Yes.
And the answer is, yeah, there are.
That's how many there are. Most of them are eternal wall dragons, but not all of them. Yeah. So
and they can shape change to humanoid.
Many of them can shape change, so you don't always know if you're going to meet a dragon. In fact, like, who knows if your PCs who are playing Jewel of the Indigo Isles Adventure Path even noticed the first time they met a dragon in that adventure path.
Yeah, there could be dragons all over the place.
I'm betting they didn't. You'll find out by the end of the adventure that you missed a dragon or two.
There's a lot of dragons in Rumplank, more than you think. So the point is that, the couple of dragons that I did use that were fun is the Lich from Age of Worms, because now
the Draco Lich in the Age of Worms adventure path.
Now that's something else, because like I've fought dragons or used dragons, but usually they're just like generic. You're fighting a generic red or blah blah blah, or you're fighting an aspect of Tiamat. In this game, you fight not a Draco Lich, you fight the Draco Lich, the original one, the consort of Tiamat, a level 23 dragon, which, by the way, the horde is an entire page long, 2 columns. It is amazing. I'm like, okay, that is an epic battle. That is fun, because you not only get to kill it, but you get like, there's so much treasure in there. I remember it's something like, here's the treasure list, and it had like it was like 27,000 copper pieces. Sorry, 27 million copper pieces. It wasn't even that. It was like, come on, really? And then it was like, like 5 million silver pieces, like 1 million gold pieces, so many like everything you can imagine. It was stunning, the treasure in that adventure. That's a great adventure.
Wow, that reminds me of the time that one of the many dragon encounters that my party was dealing with was in AD&D. They were using like players options, spells, and magic, and they wanted to pull off a true dwemer. They decided they wanted more money. They wanted to convert all of their coins to copper pieces and then cast a magic true dwemer to transform all of their copper pieces into platinum pieces, thus multiplying the amount of money that they had by 1,000. And so I was like, okay, so the ingredients this requires are a scale from a great worm copper dragon and a scale from a platinum dragon. They're like, oh, that's not hard. So they got the scale from the copper dragon pretty easily. And they're like, platinum dragon, where? Oh, crap, Bahamut. The god Bahamut is the only platinum dragon. That's the only place where we can get this scale. So they're like, hey, Bahamut, will you give us a scale so we can commit like bank fraud? And Bahamut's like, well, no, I don't think I'm going to. And then they eventually convinced him, but he said that they needed to go to hell and kill Tiamat's current avatar in order to get the scale. And so the group was like, okay, we'll kill Tiamat. So they went.
What level are they?
They were like level 20.
Okay.
They were level 20. They decided they were, like I said, they were high level doing true dwemmers, and they wanted to just get tons of money. So they went to hell. And like right exactly when that happened, 3rd edition D&D came out. And so we stopped and we went to play something else for a while until the epic level handbook came out for 3rd edition, because we didn't necessarily have the equivalent. And when that came out, we went back to it, and they went into Tiamat's lair, and they also defeated one of Tiamat's consorts, although not a Dracolich, just one of the really powerful red dragons that was there. And they eventually found this other lady who was in Tiamat's lair and was also trying to raid it. And they teamed up with her. And eventually they found Tiamat, and they talked to her, and she was like, well, this is just doesn't make any sense that he's making you kill me to get a scale. That's like so stingy too, and it's really unfair. And he's not even helping. How about this? If you bait him into coming here and tell him you killed me and he can collect the body, then we just kill him together, and I'll let you have more than just a scale. You can have, it's like, as many scales as you want. We can just split it up. And the party was like, no, okay, that's evil, but we're not going to kill her. And so she gave them like a little Tiamat's lair snow globe as like a souvenir that had like a little Tiamat's lair inside of the globe. And then they left. But one of the party members, who was supposedly chaotic good, just decided that he really wanted to take the deal. So what he did was he found an artifact that was like a diamond, chaos diamond, that like makes you chaotic evil. And he fed it to Bahamut, like was just like, here, you wanted some gems and stuff. I know you're not going to give us a scale, but just take this delicious diamond. And it turns Bahamut's avatar chaotic evil. And then that was behind the party's back. Went to the party and said, guys, I figured it out. The reason Bahamut gave us such a bad deal, his avatar has been corrupted. It's chaotic evil. The only way we can restore him is by killing this one. And when he comes back in a few years, it'll be lawful good again.
Are you the GM?
I was the GM.
No, yeah, it's evil.
And yeah, that character was definitely evil.
No, you were. You're evil.
Why was I evil?
This whole thing sounds.
What made me evil about that?
No, I don't know. You're very manipulative. It's I don't know, but they're dragons. They're supposed to be.
They decided to team up with Tiamat, and so they gave Tiamat half the treasure. They also gave a share to the lady that they found in Tiamat's lair, who they did not find out was actually just Tiamat again. So she wound up getting half the treasure and a share of the other half of the treasure. But it was okay. They won against Bahamut. They had a good time.
That was not what they expected. So that's the other thing about dragons, is that Man, I feel like playing dragons is just so hard as a monster because they're supposed to be geniuses, and that means you as the GM have to be smarter and better than your players, which you can't always be, quite frankly. I mean, as good as you might be or as smart as you might be, it's usually 4 against 1, and they usually have a lot of tricks up their sleeve, and you can only do so much. Right, it's very difficult, which is also why in Jewel of the Indigo Isle, we added our dragons, and they're kind of goofy.
Some of them are a little goofy.
Goofy is very easy to pull off. We all know how to do goofy, so... they don't all have to be geniuses. That's the thing. Like, they can just be evil.
And white dragons aren't exactly geniuses either. Yeah. There's a variety of them.
Yeah, there's a variety, but a lot of times they're depicted as these like all-powerful, all-knowing.
Yeah.
I think of Smog. Like, that is what a lot of people think of, and right. Smog was supposed to be like a super genius. Like
he's
you
also just so strong.
Yeah, he's ridiculous, and like you could not outsmart him. And they tried, and they failed. Actually, they didn't outsmart him. He still got the better of them. It was just the Black Arrow that killed them. But
right.
And like they totally got caught.
Easy to do that in a book or a movie, but in a game it's hard. You're right, Stephen. There have been few times when I've really felt like I accurately, definitely portrayed the dragons outsmarting, and the only time that I really did that for sure, it was because, like you said, 4 against 1 is not fair. But I had a group that decided to split up. And they were during downtime, the cleric went and killed like a really young red dragon and took its hoard. And it was just a little bit of money, but it didn't really make that much of a difference. The wizard at that point was like, oh, if our crappy cleric can do that, then I can kill an even more powerful dragon. And so he researched to find a dragon with a really nice hoard. And I gave him some options, and he was like, this ancient red dragon killed an ancient silver dragon, has a double-sized hoard, and is known to be a scheming mastermind with horrible traps and nobody can defeat the dragon. That's the one I'm going to beat by myself. And so I really felt like I portrayed that well, because like everyone else was just watching with grins on their face as the player went in and he just got screwed. He did not, he was the wizard. He did not bring a thief on this. He did not bring someone who could find the traps. And so he just kept running into traps and getting killed, and then resurrecting himself and coming back like Wile E. Coyote coming after Roadrunner, and the dragon being like, meep, meep, which included such gems as him falling into a pit with a DC, I think 20 climb check to get out of the pit. And he could not get out of the pit because there was an anti-magic field in it. And he died of starvation one of the times. Then there was another time that he shot off like this. It was like 3E D&D where there are lots of broken combos. So he shot out his broken combo of like maximized, empowered, twinned polar ray at the red dragon that did like 900 damage, which in 3E D&D, that is a lot. That's going to kill anything. And then it was spell turning back and it hit him and killed him. Did not quite 900 damage. So there are ways that you can do it, but you have to get lucky. And that player was also being not particularly smart. That helped.
So actually, Ninja Slayer says they had almost put Liches and Beholders at the same level as dragons. Well, there's the thing.
And maybe Mind Flayers too.
Oh yeah, Mind Flayers. But here's the thing: like if you're going to do the A, B, C, D, S ranking, dragons are S. I mean, they've been around for thousands of years, not hundreds, thousands of years. They're iconic. Everyone seems to know what they are. Everyone seems to know what they can do, more or less, without seeing them. Now, the thing about Liches, although we actually just fought a Demi-Lich recently, they are strong. They're very strong. And they're very scary, but they actually are kind of weak because they are usually spellcasters. So if you can get into them and pound them down, their spells are formidable. And like spellcaster versus like if you have a spell fight against the Lich, you're usually in trouble. Although he did maze one of the fighters, but they managed to still like get a million crits off this guy. And the funny thing is, they were middle fighting. The monk was doing great. He got mazed. he got stuck. He never came back until the fight was over, and then they killed it. And he's like, "Hey guys!" Meanwhile he was like healing up in the maze and stuff. He's like, "Hey, how'd it go? Did you win?" I was like, "Wow, that is the most ridiculous use of maze ever." And it was so funny, and I'm like, "Yeah, there you go." And beholders are another thing that obviously it's only really been around for like 50 years. I mean, I don't think they existed before D&D, really, not in this form. In some forms maybe, but not like the way they are now. They're neat. They're just a very cool, neat design. Mind Flayers, obviously, also owned by Hasbro. You know, those are really cool. Like those, I do find Mind Flayers. I've read a lot of the Drow books, the Dritz books, where they go into the Underdark. I've read actually almost all of them. And the whole culture behind Mind Flayers and the Mother Brain and stuff. I'm very excited about Baldur's Gate 3 because the entire story is about you with a worm in your head.
Isn't it an Elder Brain and Mother Brain is from
Metroid, right? Yeah. Elder Brain, Mother Brain, you know, they're all brains. But you have, I forgot the name of them, but the way they make new Mind Flayers is they take a worm and they put it in your eye, actually, and it goes to your brain and turns you into one. Eventually, that's how they propagate. Like they take humanoid creatures and turn them into Mind Flayers, and they like dark elves a lot because they're very nimble. We'll get to your super chat in 1 second. And that's the game. The game is you have one of those in it, and then you have to like gang together with other people to find and get the thing out of your head. And I was like, okay, you got me at Mind Flayer. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be an interesting game, just because like if we get to go down to the Mind Flayers and the culture, and it's just so fascinating. And that's the difference, because you have Mind Flayers who have this whole culture and society that's just stunningly weird that I love. And you have dragons, which are incredibly powerful, but they're completely by themselves, man. They're always loners. They never do anything. But back to Ollie Wright, for £10, what is each of your favorite classic dragons to roleplay as a DM and why? And also, which are the esoteric unusual dragons? Which also ties right into our poll, because we do have our Dragon Lord poll.
Yes.
Overlord.
I was going to talk about that. We've got this whole Dragon Overlord contest that's going on. And we had the first round Chromatic Dragon. So if you get our newsletter, you should check today's, because I wrote a long thing from Calazandrex, the Green Dragon, wrote a long thing about the first round.
Maybe you're really a dragon.
Who were fighting each other.
Yes. He did a play-by-play. It was like a sports analogy. It was kind of funny.
I was trying to make it like a sports announcer play-by-play for what happened. It was all based on your votes in real time. And so it talks about like the Black Dragon doing a trick to get in the lead for a short time. And that's because the Black Dragon managed to have the lead for about like 30 minutes of one day, even though it's like a week-long contest. But Blue was in the lead for the rest.
It was very close. It was neck and neck between Black, Blue, and Red for a long time. It was within like 0.2 points for those three. And then Blue, which I couldn't believe, Blue came in first, Black came in second, Red came in third, Green came in fourth, and White came in fifth. I can't believe Red. I can't believe Red came in third. I thought Red would have either won or came in second, but I guess not. As for what's my favorite dragon to play, again, I liked the Draco Lich only because it wasn't a Draco. It was the original, the consort of Tiamat. All others are based off this one. It was level 23. All the PCs were level 19. This was 3rd edition D&D, 3.5 D&D. And, this thing, like, they knew going ahead. That's the other thing. Like, they knew that they were going up against this thing. It wasn't like, it turned a corner. Hey, there's a dragon. Like, they knew what they were going up against. So they were ready. They spent time and they prepared. So when that fight broke out, not only could I pull out all the stops, but they pulled out all the stops, so it really was. It was like the end of Endgame, like Avengers Endgame. It was like, you know, they ain't fooling around. Like no one was fooling around. Like everyone was pulling out. You know, they have a spell scroll that's like 5,000 gold pieces or 10, whatever it was back then. It's like, oh, I got a 50,000 gold piece item here, one use. I'm using it. Like you're just using everything. You're not, nothing's being saved now, and that was fun. Like that's a fun fight, and it made it epic and, you know, really crazy. That was fun. So the other one I will probably say is I do like playing Goofy Dragons, because Goofy Dragons are fun and scary at the same time, because you know they're really powerful, they know they're really powerful, and they obviously don't care about it, but if you ever push came to shove, they could use it. So they just are, you know, they're like, I don't know, like a really rich friend, you know, like, you know, they was like very goofy, you know, like, yeah, they're fun to be around, but you always know they can pull out that trump card out of nowhere, so you got to be careful. I like those types. So like very powerful creatures, and it could be anything, doesn't have to be a dragon, that are very fun and kind of goofy to be around. Those are my favorite types of PCs to play, because the NPCs to play, because the PCs usually behave around them, and you can project that awesomeness without having to resort to like killing everyone. That makes sense.
Yeah, for me, I like dragons that are going to and I know that Paizo really doesn't use this much, and even retconned away the fact that Dragons Revisited that this was even around, because maybe they felt like D&D has done it too much. But I like dragons that are like hiding out and among your party or among society, and then you're like, oh gosh, this person was actually a dragon. So any dragons that are likely to do that are ones that I'm gonna like. So like in D&D, silver dragons were ones that did that a fair amount, and silver dragons are one of my favorite dragons. And I have definitely used that numerous times before. Like in one campaign I was playing, the PCs were working for the Jade Emperor's spy mistress, whose name was Otohime, but she was actually a sovereign dragon the entire time. And nobody knew why she was so good at cooking, but it was because, you know, dragons in 3rd edition had so many hit dice that if you just put all of your skill ranks from those hit dice into cooking, then you would be like one of the best chefs anywhere. And so they were like, that now it makes sense, because she kept getting that like 50,
that's 50, fun. That's
50
fun.
on her cook things when she was making us like refreshments and giving us our mission. And they just couldn't figure out how she got such a high bonus on cooking.
The problem with hiding dragons, because Trey McClure, hey Trey, yes, I had dragons all the time, is you gotta let the PCs know it's a dragon, if that makes sense. It's like eventually, not necessarily right away, because that is more fun, or at least you have rumors. Like that's the way you do it. Like you have someone who's a dragon. Sorry, you have a dragon who's hiding as an NPC, and they befriended the party, and they're cool. Like, oh, that's a cool dragon. They're really good at cooking, or they're like the leader, or they're like the head of the church, or something, like, you know, something neat. And that they're obviously someone benevolent and powerful. And then you get rumors, like, you know, they're really a dragon in disguise. And then then you could run with it, and then you don't even have to expose it. It could just be a rumor, and then you could just like put little Easter eggs in, and maybe they really are, maybe they're not. You know, that's what makes it more fun. That's the problem. What I often do in my games, and this actually just happened, is that they ran through a dungeon and there was a trap in there, and the trap was so deadly that I basically told them, almost without telling them, how to defeat it and not do it, because it not only would have been a TPK, it would have been a TPK with vengeance. Like they would have just death, more death.
How much higher level was it than the party?
They're level 13, and what's that level 15 creature with 2 heads with 5 different types of attacks? It looks like a centipede. The Angorgora or something. I forgot what it's called. Let me look it up. You and I were talking about it.
Level 15 creature.
Yeah, you and I were talking about it. You said it's the most overpowered creature.
The one that's the most overpowered for its level, the Mukrati.
No. It's level 15. It
looks like a centipede. It's level 15.
Yeah, that
three
one.
Heads.
Yes.
And yes, in the level 15 range, it's one of the most overpowered things in that level range. There are other things that are overpowered for their own level.
That thing, but they're 15, level 13 against that thing. They're dead.
For 15, the Mukrati is pretty ridiculous because of the fact that it has
Saver's death.
But it also has what was the feature that makes it so ridiculous? It's got Saver's death if it hits you a bunch of times.
It has a million things. It's like
gonna hit you a bunch
it's
of
huge.
times.
It has a reach of 20. It's 20 feet, so that's a reach of 60. So basically, if you're anywhere near it, you get hit.
Right. Also, it has 3 breath weapons, which are all using damage for. They're all using the damage for an ability that you can only use every so often, except for that it only it does turn off the whole feature when you use it, so it's not too bad. But it can get its breath weapon back every time you critically hit it.
How do you spell it again? I just want to look it up while we're talking.
Mukradi.
MUK. Oh yeah, here we go. Mukrati. Yeah, they got amazing artwork. Yeah.
If you try to confuse, paralyze, slow, or stun them, it's not necessarily even going to work.
Right. So here's the thing. All-around vision, resist acid, electricity, and fire. They can move 60 feet. They can spit at you. It can use breath weapon as a reaction, which is insane. It has pull apart, where if it hits you, then it does an extra 2d12 plus 13 slashing damage. And if you critical failure on a fort save, you are torn to pieces and die.
Yep. The reaction is the real thing that can push them over the edge, because if they manage to use their regular breath weapon, and then they get crit right away, and then they use it again, then they've done 32d6, like possibly before anything could happen except for them being
death. And they have trample. Their breath weapon, acid 16d6, flame 16d6, shock maw 16d6. Then they use it as a reaction, 32d6 points of damage on everyone.
I feel like if they just didn't have that reaction, then they wouldn't. That's what pushes them over the edge. The tearing apart is really scary, but it's not quite as likely to kill your whole party as the fact that you can do 32d6.
So anyhow, the point is back to why they're dragons. By the way, this is like what a dragon is. Like, you see a stat block like this, it's one of these. I don't think that's why I run them, because I'm like, this thing will just kill everyone. It gets way too strong. Like, you almost have to make the dragons weaker. Like, if you have a level 13 party, they have to fight like a level 12 or 11 dragon. They can't fight a level 13 or 15 dragon. They get absolutely destroyed. There's no way they're going to survive. I don't care how good you are. Like, I really don't care. Like, if you really, really think you're that good, and if I'm trying, like, I say on a scale 1 to 10, I usually play like a 3. I'm usually not trying that hard. Like, you tell me to play at a 10, you're dying. I promise you. There's no way. If I'm like playing like a true dragon and really using my intelligence and doing everything as smart as possible and using the environment and like even like having things fall on you and stuff, like, you are dead. I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying, like, that is how they're just very hard because they have too many things at their disposal. But what I like to do is, like, after they left, I told them what was there. I said, this was there, and this was there, and this was there. Is it realistic? No. Are they going to figure that out through roleplay? No. But as a GM, you kind of want to show off, like, hey, look at all these cool things. And that's the thing. If you have people hiding as dragons, either A, have them come out as a dragon at a very, very opportune, important part that's dramatic, or B, put in like rumors to say, hey, there's a dragon hanging around town. Like, that's fun too. So, that's the problem being a GM, is that you often have all these secrets and backstory that no one gets to ever see. And I think that's part of the problem with dragons, is that they are so cool and they can have pages of backstory and the PCs show up and kill it. All right. Wow, that was fun. It's like, what about the 10 pages of backstory? That's why I like the Draco-Lich so much, because it was part of legendary lore that everyone knew just by playing D&D all their time. So I didn't have to tell them what they were fighting. Like, they knew. Everyone knew the story. At least my players did, because they've been playing D&D forever. So they're like, I know what this thing is. I know the whole story behind it. Like, cool. It's like fighting Tiamat, or fighting, like something you just grew up with. Like, you knew what you were fighting. And that's another problem, is that I think sometimes you can be fighting dragons and they're just beasts. They're just like dumb beasts, and you're fighting them that are very strong dumb beasts, but it's just another monster. Right. That's why I think beholders and liches and mind flayers almost are cooler in some ways, because beholders have really cool personalities and people know that, and they're kind of fun. Liches often have cool they just have personalities, like those type of creatures. Dragons, though, my favorite quote here, you like this, Mark? Dragons color coded for your convenience, so that way if you see the color of the dragon, you know what to expect. You want to mess up a party?
Assuming that the dragon's not being clever.
That's what I was going to say. You want to mess up your party? Change the color and the personality type, and you're like, what? Red dragon's not supposed to be friendly and goofy. They're supposed to kill me on sight. So
also, just like dragons know how to use disguises.
Right.
I've definitely had situations where a dragon disguised itself as the type of dragon that, like, it's immune to the thing that dragon would be weak to, right? So like a red dragon disguises as a white dragon so that you will attack it with fire.
Oh, the wrong thing. Yeah,
and laughs. There was one encounter where a gold dragon disguised itself as a red dragon to like capture the town inventor's daughter, so that she didn't have to marry the baron's son, who she didn't want to marry, and she could be with the dragon. And the party got hired by the baron's son. They all used dark vision, so they couldn't actually see the color of the dragon anyway when they went into the fight. Oh no, it was actually a silver dragon disguised as a red dragon. It did not even use the correct breath type. It tried to negotiate with them. It was like, stop, you don't understand what you're doing. This is not what it seems. And they killed it anyway. They just did not. They did not stop. They did not think. That was a lesson to me that you should not assume that your players will pick up on clues or even be willing to listen when someone wants to talk to them.
So I will say, by the way, I'm going to mend that. My new favorite dragons, which might be the same for you, Mark, is the wild dragons. Because for the first time ever, like, I don't know ever, but in a long time, Mark and I decided to just make a new family of dragons. It started with the Indigo dragon, and then we were like, we can't just have one, gotta have another 4, because there's always 5 in a family.
That would be the first time that someone has made a new family of dragons in Pathfinder since planar dragons, which were created in Zestiria 6 of Pathfinder first. So that's a few years ago.
Yeah, but you know what, it's just that, like, you and I got to literally make a new class family of dragons, and I did some pretty cool things. I mean,
they're really interesting.
They're interesting. They're very different. They're very fun. They're playful. They like humans. They like society. They like being part. That's something I didn't like about dragons, that they're always outside of society. Like, no, these guys, they're very social. They love hanging out with people. They're very social dragons. They have tattoos on them, which are, they look different, because dragons always are like one color. So I purposely...
You need visual distinctiveness for dragons.
Yep.
If you want a new family, that's super, super important.
Yep. They had a very different look. Some of them were thin. Some of them were kind of fat. They, they obviously, I put these like tattoos on them. Tattoos are kind of big right now.
Body shapes is important too.
What's that? Oh yeah, body shapes is because you have the Vermilion dragons are like super thin. They're like
they are. They're just like very narrow.
They're very narrow with those really, really, really long snouts, and they're kind of goofy. And then you have the Indigo, which are like party animals, so like the party dragons. I was wondering
about, like, for the long snouts, is that sort of meant to evoke Pinocchio a little bit because of the fact that they're always exaggerating when they tell stories?
Well, because they're always telling stories, so they have a really big mouth. Because you just want you'll be able to see them talking all the time. Because that's going to be very visual. Like you always want them to have like you. Because if their mouths aren't big, you want something like that always draws attention, things like that. So
those dragons are great, and we got absolutely fantastic stats for them from Jessica Catalan, who is the Starfinder Society developer at Paizo, and done a lot of other stuff. So I'm sure we'll eventually have like a PDF of that or something.
Well, we'll put them all out as monsters, and then obviously the Leshy dragon.
Yes, that one Leshy dragon, Toadstool dragon.
Yeah, I don't know. We can't. We really
already
put that
have
in.
The monster stats of those. I had written them before we had Jessica write the Wild Dragon.
Yeah, I don't think we can put that into. I don't know what we can do with that because we can't really put it in the Dragon Overlord. There are other Leshy dragons. There are 4 more.
We're not going to be able to do them in Dragon Overlord unless you consider that they got to buy in their contest.
I'll either give them a buy because they're the only ones.
Coastal Dragons a buy for the Leshy Dragon round because they're the only one we know so far, so they automatically won that round and just put them right into the finals just qualify them.
There are 4 more.
Yeah, there are, but we haven't
develop
given people enough information about them yet to actually
I don't vote for them either, and no one knows what they are. So except us.
We'd either have to give Toadstool a buy or disqualification, and we'll have to decide that once we get to the end. Because this Friday we're going to switch up. Metallica is going to end, and that's pretty clear who the winner is in that one.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can vote, but to be honest, it's quite. So after you vote, it does give you the results.
Was hyper close,
very close.
There were so many things that were close. Metallic is a landslide.
Let's see. In Metallic, it's not even a landslide. It's a landslide of landslides.
I mean, it doesn't have the winner no longer has over half of first place.
I will say second, third, and fourth place are neck and neck. Second and I'm looking at the second and third place are 0.03 points away from each other. So that's very, very, very close. So
yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to not only writing the Talazandrax story about this Metallic Dragon situation, but also seeing how the Primal Dragons do, which we're going to start that one on Friday.
Yep.
And speaking of surveys, also, if you're watching this and you're someone who is backing Year of Monsters on our most recent Kickstarter, then I need you to go into the link that I'm about to put into the chat, which is just a surveymonkey.com/r/Year of Monsters dates, and then tell me when you can come to the special design streams.
There's actually a very clear winner.
Special design streams and have you join those streams, but that's gonna happen soon. Like Slimes is almost, it's pretty, you know, like. It's only 3 weeks until January, and obviously it's not going to come out at the very beginning of January. But
not right away. Yeah, I got to figure that out. Well, it's going to be in the. It'll try to do in the beginning. I mean,
because what are we missing other than the final border?
The border is missing.
Some of the Foundry.
And the Foundry is missing.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, the Foundry I worked on all day yesterday, and the Ians and I were working on to get that done. We got to work on that. That's going to probably be another week or so. I mean, unfortunately, it's like, even though we started this weeks ago, it's still kind of like, it always cuts closer than you think. Cause I'm like, started it.
That's why we did the writing and design of it like way in advance.
Oh yeah. Well, I knew. Yeah, I knew. But even
it was obvious that.
Well, but we're also doing something different is that it was their idea. It's like, well, instead of you setting up and doing one ancestry a month, we're actually putting in all assets for all 12 ancestries, and then we're going to update the assets over time, and that's taking, so basically I'm setting up 12 ancestries now, so that's kind of
and then they're blank until
they're blank.
They get updated.
They're blank, so basically it's like there's a mystery longer. There's like a mystery icon for any of the pictures, so they're pre-made. You don't have to do it that way, but it actually looks better, and also it'll load faster. Because
it's probably more exciting too.
It's more exciting
to see the question marks and then to see them fill in.
So it's taking us a lot longer to get this first one. Well, the first one always
that
takes
means
the
that
longest.
the later ones will take a lot less time.
Oh yeah. After this, will go very fast. It's also going through testing right now. So the testing of the Foundry module, and then so I need the border. I'll get any day now. He'll probably have that done in like a day or two.
And the draft of the border is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think people are really gonna like the border.
Came out really good. So the border we have to finish. The PDFs are done except for the border. And then I don't think I announced what's coming in February, but the February one, I actually did the layout for the February one. It's going to go way faster. It's because it's like the hardest part is the writing and the layout of the PDFs. After that, the Foundry module should go very quick. Like it only, it shouldn't take that long. The hardest part is writing it and the art. All the art is done. All the art's done. Most of the writing, a lot of the writing's done.
We got a lot of the art done in advance.
Yeah, we got it all
figuring
done
out for the ancestry. It's like, we want 6 different characters. Here are their classes. Here are their heritages. Let's get these done.
Yeah, and then let's see. It's just like it's just so much going on. It feels like I'm always making progress. And then I'm always feeling like I'm falling behind. It's like I can't seem to.
That's just how this is. That's how this industry always is. But I feel good about the fact that all of the design and development work is done for your Battle Zoo Zestiria, Strange and Unusual.
Yeah, so that one is like
that's good.
That's more you than me because that's stats and all. Like that's a lot of just for me. I literally watch TV when I'm like doing the layout. The next ancestry, I just did that on Saturday. Like I was literally like, I'll just throw this together, and I did it on Saturday. It takes for me again. I'm like saying it takes me no time because I've been doing InDesign for 30 years. So for me it doesn't take very long. But it's like I do crank these out pretty fast. The problem is we're doing all this stuff new. In Foundry, obviously, we just started to integrate to Pathbuilder, so that's new. That's the problem whenever you do something new. It's like you're the first one through the wall. You got to figure out how to do it, and everyone can follow you after you go through that wall, but we're the first ones through, so we got to figure this all out. But yeah, it'll work out. And then Indigo Isle, I gotta finish that, man. I'm like, I have been working on it. The third part's like very close. It's actually nearly done. I'm waiting for maps.
You still got maps, right?
That's really the big waiting point.
That's the thing that's really.
I'm actually past the maps. I'm laid out. I can't do the layout because I'm past it. Like I'm waiting for maps. The maps are going to
change how much it is.
Correct.
Like that's definitely something that has caused the timing to be different than I expected. That's just the biggest problem. The cartography took longer than we thought. And
forever.
Usually we are pretty on time with when we think things are going to be, and to get them out to people maybe a little bit later, but. With the maps here, that's just sort of outside of control.
I actually feel terrible. Like this one is like drives me crazy because I know everyone's like a little worried about the new stuff, and I'm like, the new stuff is gonna fly.
The new stuff is getting done already and
very
lapping
fast.
The old Kickstarter all because of the maps.
Yeah, it's literally the maps are what's causing all the trouble.
Not to say there isn't stuff we will need to do after the maps.
And it's a 400-page book. I almost forgot that part too. And it's a 400-page adventure. Let me tell you. Laying out the dragon book took like not even a week. Okay, it's like I finished that, and then the 5e book took me 2 days. So it was very fast. The layout of the Indigo Isles book, it was weeks of work. Probably never gonna do an adventure ever again. I'm just telling you. I know people are excited, like do more adventures. I'm like, I think adventures are not my cup of tea after this experience. I hate to say it. I love them, but wow, they are a lot of work. There's so much more work.
Yeah, I think people would need to really convince us to do another one with I don't even know,
No,
What would
I
it take?
probably won't do it.
Maybe not. Maybe it's impossible.
I don't know. If I did, it would be small. I would not do something this big ever again.
As a small
actually,
adventure,
I don't think
as like a really high stretch goal on some.
I don't think I would do it again.
Like
it's just like return. It's not even return investment. It's return on time spent. It's just a lot of work. Which is only amazing because adventures are so popular. Stuff. But yeah. Well, that's why we're trying on new things like the ancestries. Like again, the whole thing with the ancestries is that we're doing ones that you just won't see. I mean, obviously we did dragons, and to say that one is popular is an understatement. I mean, I get messages that people are playing 3 dragons in a 4-person game. Like I just hear people are playing dragons. Like I kind of knew this was. We joked like, well, once you play a dragon, you'll probably never play anything again. We joke that, but it's actually kind of turned true. A lot of people are literally just playing dragons, and there's so many different types. You could just keep going because we just have so. It's not like, oh, okay, I played a dragon, I'm done. It's like, no, there's 45 different types of dragons, and they're all play very differently. And by the way, we have a dragon in our game, and one of my favorite dragons, the was it not Indigo? What's the goofy dragons? The not Vortex.
Which dragon is Vanessa?
She's like the goofy dragons. I forgot the ones that like story and lore, and can't remember what is she.
The ones that tell gossip and rumors.
Yeah.
Amber dragons.
Oh, it's an amber. No, it's got like the fairy wings. I gotta look up the art.
She's they're the hot mess dragon.
Yes, the hot mess dragons. Which one?
Havoc dragons.
Havoc. I couldn't remember. Havoc are fantastic. I love that and she is such a hot.
Trying to help.
She's playing a superhero dragon who has an alter ego, and she turns into a dwarf when she's like in town, and so she can hear what everyone says, and everyone's like, oh yeah, the dragon steel scale, she means well. Like, she's one of those superhero that like, oh, let me save the burning barn by having it collapse, like that's how she saves it. She collapses it, the fire's out. Of course, the barn's destroyed, but she saved it. Like that's what she does. Like she always does like the worst possible way to do things. She is a hot mess, and that's fun. And because she's a dragon, she changes sizes. She can fly. She's got all these attacks. She's got all these cool abilities. Like there is no shortage of things that she is doing.
So she would embody the Futurama quote: "The value of the gemerald you saved is slightly greater than the cost of the damage you caused to this museum. A net gain for our great city."
So yeah, 25 North says, more success getting people to try out Pathfinder because of dragons.
Than anything else.
Yeah, I hate to say dragons are in 5e too, by the way. We have it for both, and they work pretty much not the same way, but you can play dragons in 5e. The thing is
but 25 North doesn't have to tell people that.
Yes. You don't have to tell people that. But the point is that she's also playing an inventor. So between an inventor dragon, she has so many gizmos, and she's just like, it's ridiculous. She can do 100 things. I mean, she has 14th level, but still, it's like you can do a lot with that. But anyhow, the point is that with these new ancestries, you can play lots of cool things, like a mimic. Who wants to play? Everyone wants to play mimic. What can a mimic do? A mimic would be awesome, or a doppelganger, or a demon. I mean, like the amount of things you can do as a doppelganger. Slime, that's my personal favorite. It's like a slime. You could do lots of cool things with the slime. You could like get into cool areas and do things, it's just the storytelling. It's like usually. I think of it this way. I think of a lot of ancestries as 2-dimensional. It's like, and what I mean by that is that you look at them and they have a specific look, which is 1 dimension, and then their stats and abilities, which is the 2nd dimension. But they're all kind of the same. But then you have monstrous ancestries that I think are 3-dimensional because you have their look, you have their special abilities, but then you have their mythic background and the fact that they're monsters. I think that's why goblins are so popular in Pathfinder, because that's exactly why. Because it's like, well, goblins have all this like mythic luggage behind them and lore and background, and you have to almost overcome that as a player. But then you have like, okay, I'm a doppelganger or I'm a mimic, and mimics have a bad rap, man. Doppelgangers have a bad rap. So if you're gonna play a doppelganger, like you have to get past that, and it's interesting. It's like it gives you a whole other level. It's like playing, that's why people like to play Drow. Same thing. It's like any monstrous ancestry, I think, is just really cool. So anyhow,
yeah. So I think we kind of covered Dragon's popularity pretty well here.
Yep.
And we talked about what's coming up. I'm really excited that it's close to 2023, the year of monsters. I really want to do a design streams with you guys who are watching here. If you are one of the backers, it's not too late if you aren't to add Year of Monsters.
Yeah. You can add it any time,
but you can add it any time, but if you add it after any particular design stream has been added, then unless you too are a time dragon and with the ability to go back in time, you won't be able to be part of a stream that has already occurred.
Maybe we'll do like a recap or a last call or something. I don't know. Think about it. We'll see how popular it is afterwards. Like if we have a lot of people who join after, so
right.
See how that goes.
Sounds good.
But yes, so you can find all these things on battlezoo.com. If you want to play a dragon, you can. Just go to battlezoo.com. You can play
Are they still 10% off for, with the Overlord, or is that one ended?
Well, that was it's secretly still there. Like I didn't turn it off. So if you enter dragons into checkout, you get it. I never turned it off.
Don't let Steven know, although I guess he figured it out. But it's secretly still there.
I put it on there on purpose. It's still there.
You can get 10% off.
10% more off. There's already 10% off.
Right, it's already off, but it's like a stacking discount. So you get like only 89% of the original price. Oh so wait, no, sorry. That would be something like that.
Okay. Well, anyhow, yes, you get some percentage off.
81%.
There you go.
That's I bet.
81% off your dragons. Not 81%
on.
81% on, not off. No, I can't do 81% off. And I'd be paying you at this point.
There you go. That would not be a good choice. We're not going to do 81%
I can't do that. But you can play Dragon. It's in everything. We literally, it's like, and it's actually built into Pathbuilder. I think that was the one that broke him. Is that because we got dragons in the Pathbuilder, and then I think every single person asked to be in Pathbuilder after that. And that's why he's like, nope. And now we have to do it ourselves, which isn't that bad. It's not that hard.
We have volunteers who are doing it. It's not like a premium module like our Foundry things are, but it's in there and you can use it.
Yeah.
And it's actually free since it's not a premium module.
Yeah, and it imports cleanly. So you can just get it. And we did that for Indigo Isles, and that's free. Like, so, because that's open content. So you can just start playing Warpork or Wildfire Liches or any of these fun things. So
Chori.
I
still want to do a personality quiz for the 7 Chori, but I don't have a good place to make one.
I don't know who would do
have
that.
People decide what Chori you are in real life. We already determined that Steven might be like Jamambri, I think, or there was one of the other ones that he might be as well.
So the Turkey heritage. Yeah, that is in the Indigo Isles. If you download the updated Indigo Isles Pathbuilder, we did add the Turkey heritage in there. So you just have to update the JSON. You have to re-upload it, and then you'll see it in there. You just do little check boxes. So yeah, we did add it. So there you go.
There we have it.
Yep. But so also, by the way, so we'll probably, I think we're doing one next week, but then the week after, during Christmas break, there will be no stream because I'm away and Mark's away. Everyone's away, so we're just not doing anything. And then after that is the January 4th. So we'll probably do something. Back by then. Yeah, I mean, I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back. So, and then, God, the years, this time of year always goes awfully fast. So, the Year of Monsters, I'm like, we have plenty of time.
do we?
Well,
but we did it really well in advance. We started well in advance, so we're gonna make it, even though you never have as much time as you think. That's why I started like these first ancestries, like the moment we funded and knew how long they were going to be
written
and how many
months ago. Yeah, we wrote them a long time ago. It was just what took a long time is first getting all the artwork.
And we had to get the 5e conversion because we were still getting 5e conversion for some of the things from the first Kickstarter. So we had to get that. We had to get the artwork ready so we could lay it out, so we could do the Foundry assets.
And then I had to come up with the layout.
There's all these dependencies.
Yep. And I had to come up with the layout because this is a new layout. Yeah, so RPG Superstar, not for 2022. RPG Superstar takes up a lot of time, and I'm trying to finish up. I'm kind of making a soft rule. Is like I got to finish up the first Kickstarter 100%, and there's very little left in that one. I know
it's
people
literally just those last maps, and then also laying out those the wall dragons, because those were in a PDF of those were technically in the Kickstarter for that one, and that's it.
Yeah, well, you got to print them, ship them.
Oh yes, well, sure. I didn't say that layout is the only thing for Indigo Owls.
Yeah, it's done from my point of view, from our point of view, because once it goes out to the printers, there's not a lot I do. It's just sort of done. Well, don't forget the VTTs have to get done too. So
you're right.
Well,
and there's work to be done with that.
And I'm working.
But yeah, we're still gonna probably want to do Elemental Flurry, whatever it is. But that'll have to be next year's theme instead of this year's theme.
Yeah, I want to do it, but it's just gonna take. It takes a lot of time. And
I have a feeling that RPG Superstar's schedule might wind up being easier to do on an every other year basis as well, potentially, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I did it every year because it was easier at first.
Yeah, it's possible we'll be able to get a rate going where we can do it faster than that, but overall, at least for now, since I was hired on for most of 2022, but we also had a backlog at that point in time from the first Kickstarter. So it's possible we'll get to a steady state where we can do it more often than that. But for now, obviously, if you look at the first Battle of Zestiria and then the second one, and then now going on a year, off a year is where we're at least for the moment.
I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to be ahead of everything. That's right now. I'm like, I can't keep adding new things. You can't be falling behind and adding new things. That's really the whole problem. Is that it's very tempting to start something new, but I kind of have to finish the other things, and I know people are disappointed, but well, you can do your own. You can make your own little superstar. It's not official, but you guys can have your own little contest.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if we wind up being every other year on the off years, like there can be a fan contest of like the superstar in absentia or something like that, where you just make a month or just to practice and critique each other's. The tool still works and lets you put the monster online. I think other people can look for it. So if you have some kind of tag to indicate which ones were made for that, there's definitely nothing preventing you from keeping yourself from getting rusty during the intervening time.
So, all right, everyone. Well, I'm going to go, and we will have another topic next week, and I don't know what it'll be.
Back to the monster mines for Year of Monsters. Get us ahead on even more monsters.
Well, you got to do that, and I got to finish up some Indigo Isles Foundry work, doing layout for the actual stylization of Foundry. So, because I don't want it to look exactly like Foundry, but I also don't want it to look too crazy. I think like if you bought Punks in a Powder Cat or any of those Paizo ones, they're really styled. Like, so I'm kind of doing something in between. I'm like, it's gonna have a style, but it's not gonna be too crazy. I'm not going that level, so make it at least nice. So,
all right.